What's the curation of all these cool digital tools that maybe are readily available in your district's toolbox that you just need to maybe scale up your teaching moves so you can have the strategy meet that purpose and really make a great digital experience for not only you, but also your students.
Hello there, and welcome to today's episode of the Easy EdTech podcast. I am so excited you're here. If we haven't met before, my name is Monica Burns. I started the Easy EdTech podcast in 2019 to share my favorite tips, tricks, and strategies for technology integration. With over 200 episodes to choose from, including new ones each week, you'll hear stories from my time in the classroom, the work I do now with schools and districts, and updates on my travels to different EdTech events. Each episode is designed to give you ideas you can try yourself, share with a colleague, or bookmark for later in the school year. Don't forget to look for the link to the show notes in the description of this episode. You'll find that link right below the episode summary in every podcast app. This episode is sponsored by my AI in Education membership. Curious about artificial intelligence in education? This membership is designed for teachers and educators passionate about staying ahead of the curve. It offers a comprehensive and curated monthly experience that will keep you up to date on the latest trends in artificial intelligence and tools for the classroom. Join now by heading to my website, classtechtips.com, and tapping on the artificial intelligence button at the top of the page. This week's episode is titled Adopting a Strategy-Based Approach to EdTech Integration, and I chat with Jen, Kate, and Troy, the authors of Making the Move with EdTech. You're going to hear about what strategies you can put into place to make the move with different education technology tools, including 2 specific strategies, a 6-word story, and exit tickets you could try out right away. Let's jump into the conversation with Jen, Kate, and Troy all about strategy-based approaches to EdTech. Welcome to the podcast. I am so excited to chat with you all about this topic of adopting a strategy-based approach to EdTech integration. We're going to go through some things from your new book that I'm excited to chat about. But before we get into all of those pieces, would love to hear a bit about your roles in education. What does your day-to-day look like?
I'll begin. I'm Troy Hicks. I'm a professor of English and Education, as well as the chairperson of the Department of Teacher and Special Education at Central Michigan University. Most of my days are here on campus, though I do often collaborate and connect with K-12 colleagues and try to visit classrooms as often as possible, though probably not as often as I would really like to.
And I'm Jenn Parker. I'm transitioning right now from an interactive instructional technologies and school data consultant at Macomb Intermediate School District, and I will soon be working at University of Florida, Gainesville at their Center for Teaching Excellence. So my day-to-day is anywhere from visiting our 10,000 teachers in our county to being online in interactive experiences with students or teachers or etc. So that's what I do.
My name is Kate Grunow. I am also an interactive learning consultant at an ISD outside Metro Detroit. I work with the same group of teachers and students that Jen currently works with, so about 130,000 teachers and 10,000 students. I do professional development. I work with our learning management systems. I teach face-to-face. I teach online. We kind of do a little bit of everything over here.
Yeah, there's 130,000 kids to deal with here in our county, so big job. We see a lot.
Well, I'm so excited to hear all of your perspectives on this topic with your varying roles and all of the students and educators that you interact with. And so maybe, Jen, we can start with you. Today we're talking about adopting a strategy-based approach to EdTech integration. But first, I want to ask you about frameworks. What do popular EdTech frameworks do well? Where do they fall short?
It is soup to nuts with the acronyms that we have in EdTech, from SAMBR to TPEC to PICRAD, oh my. And we are, we're big fans of the work that our colleagues have done. We're big fans of Liz Kolb's work in Triple E, and we really like the TIM matrix where you're doing walkthroughs. But what we were finding is those are are very pedagogy based and very, very mindful about certain elements. But what we found was missing was that purposeful integration of the millions of tech tools that are out there and that connection between that strategy and that purpose that you would use that tech tool. So we saw there's big range of digital tools out there. I don't want to entertain my kids. I want to make it fit with a strategy that I know really works for me. So one of the things that we do in the book is introduce something that we call the technology categories for purposeful instruction. And we are trying to get teachers to be mindful about how do you want to use the technology? Are you using it for communicating? Are you using it for data analysis? Are you using it for students to collaborate or for you to collaborate with colleagues? What is that purposeful use of technology? And then, hey, what's the curation of all these cool digital tools that maybe are readily available in your district's toolbox that you just need to maybe scale up your teaching moves so you can have the strategy meet that purpose and really make a great digital experience for not only you, but also your students. So that's where we were at.
Yeah. And this strategy-based approach is something I'd love to dive into a little bit more. You talk about it in your book, Making the Move with EdTech. Kate, what does it mean to take a strategy-based approach?
Right. So we kind of all have our favorite teacher moves. If you think about like 6-word story or gallery walk or exit ticket, these are the moves that we know and love that we go to as teachers. Many of these moves are based off of the work of Robert Marzano, or if you think about Hattie. But what these moves look like in practice with technology and scaling them up is something that we've seen teachers struggle with. So one of our focuses in the book was to take the moves that are familiar, the ones that we know and love, the ones that we know research has said are good for teaching and learning, and to show what they look like in practice, but with that purposeful use of technology. So we call them moves because these are your go-to teacher moves, but they're also based on that research that we know is what's good for teaching and for learning.
And I think that's such an important part of this whole conversation, anchoring something that might already happen in a school or a district, those initiatives that everyone has committed to, they've spent time, right, looking at the research in these other spaces. So I really love that connection and having that strategy-based approach. So, Troy, how can educators in whichever role, right, they happen to hold, make sure technology integration is truly purposeful in their learning environment?
Appreciate that question. All three of us are ISTE certified educators, and we had a great deal of conversation about this as we were formulating the book. And one of the things that we often get lost in our own conversations with educators, again, as we alluded to a moment ago, we can talk about these great tools, but we don't get into the moment-to-moment details of teaching decisions. And so when we go back and we think about these protocols, these routines, what we have called moves in the book, it helps us think with teachers about what that might look like. So for instance, I'm a teacher in social studies who's familiar with like the Library of Congress's teaching with primary sources analysis tool, which is very similar to the I see, I think, I wonder routine. There are lots of ways we could do that. We can do I see, I think, I wonder just by having something shown on screen and then students writing that on paper. But we could also do that by integrating that image into a Google slide or a PowerPoint slide and having students put comments on it. We could have our students use Seesaw to add those types of comments. We could have students use an annotation tool like Hypothesis or Now Comment. And all of those are disciplinary decisions as much as they are technological decisions. And that's why I think it's so important for different teachers at different grade levels and with different subject areas to integrate that disciplinary thinking with these routines and the technology. And I know Kate and Jen are going to talk a little bit more about that, but hopefully that gives you a sense of our approach of how we decided on this use of the move as part of the core part of the book.
And just the idea that a group of educators could come together, can have a conversation about what feels great for everyone, but how it might look a little different, right? When they are facilitating those learning environments in different content areas with different curriculum goals, with different groups of students, even if they're teaching the same thing. So I love that common conversation that a group of educators could have in their space, even if their own day-to-day looks a little bit different, than their colleagues. So Kate, one of the examples that I love within the book was the 6-word story. It's one of the activities you talk about. What does this look like in practice?
Right. So I think one of the things that we're seeing right now is this shift from teacher-driven use of technology to student-empowered use, where the students are the ones that are making decisions about how they use technology and about creating new and exciting digital artifacts based on what they're doing with this tech. So in 6-Word Story, you're going to see this shift from the teacher-driven use, where the teacher's creating these kind of templates for students in Google Docs. It's going to guide them through the process of summarizing something in just 6 words. But you're going to see as you move from this getting started to scaling things up, there's going to be the shift from teacher-driven use to student-driven use, where then the students are the ones that are developing these Google Docs and they're collaborating in them and they're using these digital photo editing tools to come up with these images where they're going to put their 6-word story on top of the image. But you're gradually moving from that teachers doing all the tech use to the students getting a little bit more responsibility. And then the student is actually creating this really exciting digital artifact where they're demonstrating their understanding in just 6 words. They might be using dictionary tools online to think about like different words they could use to be creative with or to kind of play with their sentence structure. But again, it's that gradual release of responsibility where we're scaling it up within the move. You're starting with the teacher-driven and then you're moving to that students creating those more empowered digital artifacts that are going to use that technology in meaningful ways.
Sure. Yeah. And I would imagine there too, as I'm kind of envisioning, as you're talking here, about a really strong teacher exemplar with one of these tools before students are even going out to look, the kind of conversations they might have with the different noticings from that exemplar. And I love that creation of something that I feel silly sometimes using the word tangible when we like hold something in our hand and talk about technology. Right. But this idea that it's something tangible, right, and shareable that other people can see and celebrate. So I really love that example. And there are lots of different tools that teacher and student could use to accomplish those goals, which I think is one of the things that resonated with me from your work is the flexibility there, right? If you have something in your tool belt because you chose it or because you were told to use it by someone else making that decision, right? There's just a lot of flexibility there. So Jenn, I'm curious to unpack what this could look like with piece of formative assessment that so many of us are familiar with, right? Exit tickets are a popular way to check for understanding. And how can educators use technology alongside this formative assessment routine?
A couple of things that you said really resonated with me when you're talking about the comfort level and the scaling up. And that's really kind of one of the things that we targeted. An exit ticket is a great example of that because not every teacher is comfortable with all the bells and whistles, polls and polling tools, etc. But if you start simple with something simple, comfortable, no tech with, using the card system with your exit ticket at the end to make sure they hit the objectives, then scaling up with something a little more complicated, say a Kahoot or a poll slide in a slide deck. And then possibly taking it to the next level in your online class using an interactive poll with built-in features, as part of Zoom. Scaling that up, building your comfort level, moving from that student-centered piece to the teacher-centered to the student-empowered experience is really where we want to go. I mean, it doesn't just mean you pushing yourself out of your comfort zone. It means you getting comfortable in the new options that are available to you and kind of scaling up that digital age teaching and learning.
Yeah. And that scaling piece is such an important point that you made because, so many of the times when we talk about technology integration, it can feel like this massive jump for people. Like it has to go straight to this other piece, but it really is about building those routines, having that comfort level, right? Building that capacity as you are kind of moving up, right? And really ready to scale that integration. So I mentioned already a little bit about the book. Perhaps we can hear a little bit more about the story behind the book. Can I throw that to you, Troy, and hear a little bit about how this came to be?
Yeah, so the three of us had collaborated in smaller ways previously. Jenn, I think you and I met on a curricular committee 5 or 6 years ago, and then was fortunate enough to meet Kate, who I know the two of you worked together as she began our master's and then doctoral program here at Central Michigan. So as the three of us were talking, oh my goodness, a couple of years ago now, we decided that we needed to think about how to bring these protocols, these thinking routines, these ways of knowing and to connect them to the technology, again, to address some of the concerns that we have. There are many models out there. They all do good things, but we wanted to give teachers ways to think about the moment to moment okay, there's millions of tools, I think, as Jen suggested a few moments ago. Which one are you going to pick for this particular moment, for your particular students in your particular discipline? And then as we started to coalesce around that idea, the book started to take shape, and we really got interested in playing on this idea of using the move metaphor. That was a lot of fun as we continued to write the book.
And something that I think is really practical for readers too, right? They can wrap their head around not only the big idea, but what that application is going to look like in their particular learning environment. So would love for listeners to stay connected with you all to learn about your book, Making the Move with EdTech. Of course, I will link out where anyone is listening today. They can click and follow along. But if they are on the go and maybe making that mental note, where can people connect with you all? Where can they learn more about your work?
Well, they can find out more about some of the things that we do here in Macomb at the 21thingsforeducators.net. They can find all three of us on LinkedIn and on the X.
Yeah.
I know, that's what I was thinking. We still call this Twitter, or are we calling it something different?
Yeah.
The site formerly called Twitter. We'll do a Prince acronym. But yeah, we're out there on social media and on the Solution Tree website. But we appreciate everybody supporting the fact that we are respecting what every teacher, where they are. We are meeting you where you are. We respect that everybody's bringing great strategies and a wonderful appreciation for art and science of teaching. We just want to help you scale it up a little bit with resources in your backyard so you can create digital age teaching and learning for your students. So that's what our goal is with the book.
Well, thank you all so much for joining today. Anyone who's listening can click on the links and find out more. It was so much fun chatting with Jen, Kate, and Troy about their ideas and strategies for integrating EdTech into classroom environments. So let's finish up this episode like we always do with a few key points that can help make this EdTech easy. Review any frameworks you might already use. Shift to a strategy-based approach for EdTech integration. Choose a move you can scale, like formative assessment routines. Remember, you can find the show notes and the full list of resources from today's episode, including all of the ways to connect with Troy, Kate, and Jen by going to classtechtips.com/podcast and finding today's episode number 232. This episode is sponsored by my AI in Education membership. Curious about artificial intelligence in education? This membership is designed for teachers and educators passionate about staying ahead of the curve. It offers a comprehensive and curated monthly experience that will keep you up to date on the latest trends in artificial intelligence and tools for the classroom. Join now by heading to my website, classtechtips.com, and tapping on the artificial intelligence button at the top of the page. Thank you for tuning in to another Tuesday episode of the Easy EdTech podcast. Stay tuned this fall for a few bonus episodes. Instead of Sundays like we've done this past year, they're going to shift to Fridays. Not every Friday, but every once in a while. So make sure you're listening on a podcast app where you can hit the follow button. That way, every new episode, not just Tuesdays, but the bonus ones too, will pop up for you as soon as they go live. And if you want to share an idea from today's episode, maybe with a friend or a colleague, you can send the link to them as a text or even tweet or post it on your favorite social media platform. You can find me there too. Just tag me at Class Tech Tips with any takeaways or questions.